Pay attention to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, because we're seeing a major crash in the markets due to Donald Trump and inflation in the United States. We're going to discuss this in detail and look at the liquidations, the futures gap, which we're on the verge of closing, and this is going to be a pretty interesting video. So without further delay, let's get started. And today we're starting with investing. As you already know, we've had some important data from the economic calendar. First up, unemployment benefit claims. I think I said it wrong yesterday. It was just a slip of the tongue. The more unemployment benefit claims there are, the higher the unemployment rate will be in the United States. In any case, the number came out as expected, nothing unusual, but the most important thing today is the monthly PPI. I've already explained what the PPI is. It's producer inflation, this inflation that affects producers. So, just so you know, that basically means that it costs producers more to make things. If making a bottle of water, instead of costing $1, now costs $1.50, guess what's going to happen to your bottle of water next month? You're not going to buy it for $1.50, you'll end up paying $2. Consumer inflation is going to go up. In any case, they were expecting 0.2, and it came out at 0.9. Okay, that's a terrible inflation figure. And this has caused the markets in general to plummet. We've seen drops of more than 4% in just 5 or 10 minutes. There's been a crash, a clear crash, a crash in the market. In any case, this is important not just because of the inflation itself, but because of what the Federal Reserve will do, since it's expected that the Fed will lower interest rates in September. But look at the difference. Because of this data, yesterday there was a 94% chance that they would lower interest rates. Today, it's only 90%, okay? There's a higher chance now that they won't cut rates. If you ask me, I'd say they probably will lower interest rates because there's something going on here. Where do you think this inflation is coming from? And this is where Donald Trump comes in. Where does it come from? From the tariffs. What's one way to bring down inflation overnight? By removing the tariffs. So, it wouldn't be surprising if they still go ahead and cut interest rates. Maybe because the Fed reaches some kind of agreement with Donald Trump or whatever, since obviously what Donald Trump wants is for interest rates to go down. So right now, maybe the Federal Reserve says to him, if you remove the tariffs, I'll lower the interest rates for you. Because if you remove the tariffs, inflation isn't that bad. It's not so out of control. But obviously, those tariffs have come into play here and prices have shot up. So this is very bad for the market. Donald Trump doesn't want runaway inflation either, because then they won't lower rates. So he has to choose between one thing or the other. I think they will eventually lower rates, although, well, apparently this data is pretty bad and we'll see in detail what the Fed expects and what the market expects. In any case, for now, there's still a 90% chance of an interest rate cut. So be careful with that. Let's go straight to investing. Let's check trading different, the liquidations. What were we talking about the other day regarding liquidations? Well, we were saying that the area up here around 123,000 still had some liquidations left. And what happened in the end last night? Well, we've liquidated absolutely all the shorts that were pending. And what happened after all the pending shorts were liquidated? The market already started to drop and has kept going down, obviously with this big red candle when the inflation data came out, but it was already dropping before that. And that's completely normal for two reasons. First, because there were no more liquidations left around here, and second, the way to create new liquidations above is simply by falling for a while. And also keep in mind that we have the futures gap that we're just about to close. We're just like $200 or $300 away from closing that futures gap. For now, it looks like this could drop a little more. It could fall to 116,500, 116,000. All these areas around here, we could see Bitcoin drop to them. Okay. I don't think we've hit the bottom yet, although we're very close to it, and I'm going to show you why. Even I'm starting to open a few longs, taking advantage of the fact that, and be careful, this is no small thing. Since last night's high, Bitcoin has already dropped more than 5% in less than 24 hours. It's a significant drop. In any case, there aren't many liquidations, so there's not much to comment on there. Let's move straight to the Bitcoin analysis. So, what are we seeing in the Bitcoin analysis? Check out today's candle. A bearish engulfing candle, right after hitting all-time highs. Yesterday we hit all-time highs, and today we've even pushed those highs a bit further. But just look at this candle. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's an engulfing candle over 4 candles. It's a really bad candle. But this doesn't mean we're heading straight to 100,000. This is simply a bad candle, and half of it is due to a macroeconomic news event. Okay. So obviously, there's been a crash in the market. There's been a crash. Look, in fact, I want you to see this, okay? This candle here, Bitcoin dropped more than 2%, but for example, Ether in this candle fell more than 3% in just 1 hour. A lot of coins here, for example, Ripple ended up closing down 3.6%, but it actually dropped as much as 7% in 1 hour. Clearly, that's a crash. Okay? A drop of 7% in 1 hour is a market crash. So as you can see, obviously the coins aren't looking too good right now, but check out what we have here, for example, on the 4-hour Bitcoin chart. How does it look? Well, the NACD is clearly pointing down after a bearish divergence. It's right at an important support, which is the 200-period moving average. And it's important, really important, to keep in mind we're right in the futures gap area, and I want you to see it here. This is the futures gap that we had open. It was open up to here, and we've already closed a good part of it, but there are still about $500 of the futures gap left to close. This could happen at any moment, okay? Personally, I think that Bitcoin will end up losing this 200-period moving average, at least temporarily. It could be a wick, it could be, like I said, a few hours below, but for me, starting from the area of $117,000 or $116,500, there will probably be a lot of chances for good rebounds. Nothing has changed. Bitcoin hasn't turned bearish. The recession hasn't arrived. Nothing has changed at all, like I said. Simply put, and if you don't believe me, watch yesterday's video. In yesterday's video, we talked about how at any moment we could see a big drop in the market to liquidate all the over-leveraged people. All the people who started going long when Bitcoin broke its all-time highs, all those people have already been liquidated. Everyone who, for example, went long on XRP yesterday at around $3.30, it's dropped to $2.90. Those people have been liquidated. The market has just wiped everyone out. And now that everyone has been cleared out, now that we're about to close that futures gap, now it actually makes sense to start looking for some longs or to start making some buys. A purchase, and this is important to keep in mind, a purchase at $118,000 today, after a 6% drop, is a much better buy than buying at $118,000 2 days ago when it was overbought. The purchase is exactly the same in terms of price, but your risk is much lower because now you've had the drop, now you've had the liquidation, and even though you're at exactly the same price, the purchase makes much more sense from a technical analysis perspective. Okay. So, well, we're still at support, we're closing that futures gap. It's not 100% closed yet, but we've closed part of it. We have about half left, or maybe even a little less. We're on the verge of doing it. I think we will end up doing it. And on the 1-hour chart, there is some bad news here too, which is that we're also losing the 200 moving average on the 1-hour time frame. Well, we need to recover it. Until Bitcoin recovers the area of $118,400 to $118,500, we can't say it's bullish on the 1-hour chart, so there could still be some more downside. Although it's true that we're already oversold, I don't think we have a lot more to drop. But honestly, we're not in a great spot right now on the 1-hour chart either. I think this is pretty clear. So, well, as you can see, right? Basically, what we're seeing is just a market scare, just like we talked about in yesterday's video. And for now, literally nothing has changed. We're simply closing the futures gap, which is completely normal. The only really important thing is the macro data that just came out, which I personally didn't expect to be so bad, but well, neither did the market, and that's why it dropped as much as it did. Let's go straight to the altcoin analysis in today's video. And for example, we even have Ether, right? Even Ether has seen big drops. It looks like it could still have a bit more room to fall. The thing is, Ether is extremely strong. If it could drop to 4,340, that would be important. It would be interesting to be able to get into Ether. But for now, what it's showing is incredible strength. So, well, there are very few chances that Ether will drop that much. In any case, well, obviously, if you are truly interested in purchasing it, you can certainly acquire it right now for more than a full 5% cheaper, which is indeed pretty good. You have coins like Cardano, which have gone up a lot in recent days, but today it also took a big hit, dropping more than 11% in the last few hours. Obviously, it had been going up a lot, so it's normal for such a volatile coin to also drop that much. OM dropping 9. Well, you know that every time it goes up, shorting is a sure thing, obviously. Solana, for example, too. Look at that, huh? Today, you could get Solana for 10% less than yesterday. And there are people who, even so, prefer to buy at the very top and not when it has dropped, right? Which is, in the end, what we were waiting for, and we had said this. In a bull market, any drop like this usually ends up being a really good opportunity to buy and basically to increase your cycle longs a bit or to add to some positions, because clearly this bounces back very quickly when you're in a bull market, especially during an alt season. XLM, look at how much it's dropped, right? It's also dropped more than 12% in 24 hours. I mean, these are coins that right now are quite a bit cheaper. This XLM hasn't been this cheap since August 7th. Pretty much, I think that was the day we opened the cycle longs, right? Around then. No, it was the 3rd, 2 weeks ago. Well, look, it's been over a week. More than a week since it was this cheap. BGB, look for 0.5 again, losing almost everything it gained with yesterday. In the end, the coins are taking a hit, but these are opportunities. All the suffering the coins are going through are opportunities to, increase some positions a bit. What positions do I have open right now? Well, let's take a look with the analysis. All right, in this case, let's open BitGet. Right now, I'm in a small long on Bitcoin, okay? I have a long open here, but yeah, I'm losing a bit of money. If you look at the trade history, I've been trading look over 1300 plus 6, plus 6,000 in this case, plus 1500, plus 900, plus 900. Well, I've been trading a bit in the market, opening some shorts, obviously, and even some longs, okay? I've been trading both. I've been doing a bit of scalping. And in fact, for example, some of the trades like this short where I made so much profit, I shared it on Telegram in the CRYPTOHEX Trading Hub. Remember, you can basically join the Telegram for free. Well, simply if you register on BitGet using the link in the description and go to my website, you'll find all the info in the description as well. You can join for free. There are signals, there's a trading bot, and there's a really cool community chat. And well, I think it brings you a lot of value. There are already more than 2,000 traders in the Trading Hub, and everyone is super happy. And like I said, at least you don't have to pay anything for all of this. And as I said, right now I'm starting to open a long position, and you can see that I'm a bit in the red. Why? Because from the area of 200, 117,350 to 116,500, there's a good chance of a bounce, especially in the short term, mainly on the 1-hour chart due to this oversold condition, the gap having closed, and, well, because right now we're entering a bit of a fear phase, right? People are starting to get scared, just like when we're in a state of greed. I tell you, man, I'm not going to go long when we're overbought and in greed. And right now what we have is oversold conditions and fear. So, for me, this is the time to start looking for some longs or to start increasing some positions. If Bitcoin drops a little more, I'm telling you, down to the 117,000 or 116,500 zone, I'll put a bit more capital into the long and average in a little. That's all really, okay? So, let's wrap up the video with a recap of today. And as you can see, basically Trump stirred things up. The market was already dropping before. We were already heading toward that futures gap. But things really sped up with the inflation data we got today. I'd like to know your opinion. Do you think the Federal Reserve will lower interest rates a month from now, on September 17th, when they have their meeting? You know, according to the market, there's a 90% probability, but I'd like to know what you think. So that's it. I'll end the video here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you tomorrow with more. See you soon, everyone. Goodbye.